check out All Elite Podcast.
We are the Lucha Brothers, and you listen All Elite Podcast. You know why?
Hey, this is Cole Cabana. Check out the All Elite Podcast. All Elite.
This is Sammy Guevara, the best ever. And you, yes, you, need to go check out All Elite Podcast.
What's up, man? It's the After Machine, the Wolverine, Mr. GMSI himself, a man with the huge effort arms, Brian Cage. You're watching the All Elite Podcast. Who better?
We are back, All Elite family, to another exciting edition of the All Elite Podcast. As always, I'm your host, All Elite Andrew, and I'm joined by my guy, my wonderful co-host, my boy, AJ Fitzgerald. AJ, how you doing after a wonderful episode of All Elite Wrestling Dynamite?
Doing good, man. Revving up for Thanksgiving. Everything's pretty good. Watched Dynamite, as you know, and thought it was a pretty okay show. Nothing crazy, but I guess it's okay because they're going into a big show.
Yeah,
so I'll give them the mulligan. You could just
relax, have a nice little relaxing episode of Dynamite going into Thanksgiving, so I'm not too upset about it. Nothing too crazy coming from the episode, but building up to an exciting episode next week, so I am excited about what we have going on. But I don't blame him, and I think this was a taped show, so I really didn't expect anything crazy. I did buy into the hype this morning that Kenta could possibly show up every time. All he has to do is post a video of him near an airplane, and I'm like, he's coming. But he
might be coming for next week. He might have been touching down in Florida.
I believe it. I'm with it 100%. Maybe next week. And that would kind of make a lot more sense from a storyline perspective if Kenta were to show up, you know? You wouldn't necessarily do it a week before his big event. You would do it maybe after the big event, you know what I mean? So that's kind of what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, that would be sick. I would be over the moon for that. I don't know if it's going to happen because... he's posted those plane things a lot, so maybe he just travels a lot.
Yeah, maybe Kenta is just traveling, and we, like a lot of others on social media within wrestling, have taken this and ran with it in the wrong direction. But I'm going to keep hope. I'm going to hold out hope. I cannot let go of this Kenta thing just yet. I think that it would be very cool to finally get that crossover situation with AEW and New Japan. So every time he posts something, I get a little bit excited about it. It's not like every other week when we come to you on Thursdays when we're talking about ratings and stuff like that, because tomorrow is Thanksgiving. So we are coming to you on Wednesday. I'm thankful for AEW, thankful for Dynamite, but I am going to take tomorrow's time to enjoy a nice little day off, enjoy some good food with my family and stuff like that. So we're going to talk about Dynamite tonight.
Yeah, right, I'm not sure if the ratings will even be out tomorrow because of Thanksgiving.
Yeah, exactly. So there's just nothing. There's no extra AEW news, I guess we could say. There's obviously the video game and stuff like that we're excited for. I don't know that Kenny Omega was teasing something on his website for a while there, but I don't know if he's really revealed what that is exactly yet. But keep an eye out on that. Otherwise, not a whole lot going on behind the scenes of AEW, as they're probably getting ready to celebrate the holidays themselves. So let's go ahead and talk about Dynamite. They opened up the show with a memoriam for Bob Ryder. That was cool. And then, obviously, the match itself they open with is Hangman going up against John Silver. What did you think about this match for the opening matchup, AJ?
Surprisingly good. I knew who would win and everything. I wasn't surprised there, but it was really well done. I wasn't expecting a 9-minute really good ass technical wrestling, throw 'em, catch 'em, flip 'em wrestling match right in the opener. So a really good opener for booking from a booking standpoint.
What a year for John Silver, too, you know, someone who really wasn't heralded as a whole lot previously, and over the last couple months, really, he's kind of caught on, had a really solid match here, so it's not just his work outside the ring, not just his work on being the Elite and on television, but also just in the ring as well. So I thought this was a solid match. The pre-match and post-match stuff was kind of interesting, with Dark Order cutting a promo saying that they like Hangman before the match, but they were obviously hyping up their boy to win. And then post-match, not really attacking him, saying they're not here to attack him. They regret some of the things they've done to him, but they see the Elite as a cult. And so they ask him to join. And it's an intriguing thing. I don't really anticipate him joining or aligning with the Dark Order. But it's cool to go back to this storyline because they really didn't finish it. So he needs something to do.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the post-pay-per-view being the Elite where Hangman went to the Elite locker room and they were all celebrating and he didn't go in. So he went to the Dark Order locker room where they're chanting "fuck Hangman," and he joined in the chant.
Oh,
so I guess that was planting the seeds for him joining the Dark Order. But I don't know if he's gonna join the Dark Order, but clearly that's the angle here.
yeah, definitely, and they've teased that angle a couple times, so I'm intrigued to see where they go with it, and an interesting way to replant the seeds before a big show, and kind of take the heat off of people thinking that Hangman was the one who had attacked Moxley, so that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
We then get Alex Marvez interviewing Kenny Omega. He asks Omega his thoughts on last week. Kenny says that the more things change, the more they stay the same. The only difference between now and the last time that he and Moxley faced is that he sees his face on magazines and being called the best. Lately, since he won the tournament, it's all about Kenny Omega again. It isn't until he wins the belt that he'll be the best again and leave some He asks he asks Moxley to leave the garbage wrestling at home, and then mentions that his dad would beat the shit out of Mox's dad. This was an interesting promo. The biggest takeaway, obviously, with Kenny Omega just asking Mox to leave the garbage at home. Come and fight me one-on-one in a traditional style wrestling match. None of your tactics.
Yeah, no outside of the ring, forever 10 count bullshit. Do it in the ring. I'd love that. I really hope that he responds to that, because later in the show he didn't respond to that at all. But we'll get to that. But I did like this promo. I think this promo to me, even though he was already a heel, but this really solidifies Kenny as a heel to me.
Yeah, I mean, at least within this story, and like even just the sly remark about his dad and Mox's dad. It's like it just adds that extra little element of like snarkiness. So, yeah.
And I know there's no heels and no baby faces, but like for the sake of just talking about it, he seems like a heel.
He's definitely playing the role of the anti-hero. At least, like go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's very New Japan to like, if you're up against somebody who everybody favors, to play into that heel role. Like even Tanahashi, when he was like in towns that hated him, knew that he was going to go out and get booed, so he'd play it up and he would play with fans. And it's definitely the smart move to do. Like whatever situation you're in, if it calls for you being the heel, or even if you're traditionally a babyface, like go for it. Like play into it.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%, and I think that it makes sense for Kenny to lean into it at this point in the story and everything. So he also mentioned the fact that Mox had beaten him in the past and all of that. So I really like where they're going, even with the promos for this one. This has been some of the best promo fodder for Moxley at this point, even Kenny doing a really solid job here. So after that, we get a nice little video for Darby Allin. He spray-painted Taz's motto on a car, then sets the car on fire. So just some more edgy Darby Allin videos. So can't really complain about him.
Yeah, no, it was this one had talking in it, so that was cool. I survive if I let you, he said. I'm into it. We don't talk a lot about these promos because there's not a lot to talk about, but I do want to mention that they are cool, and it does add an air of mystique to Darby Allin. It gives like Jeff Hardy vibes, and I like it.
In its own way, for sure. It's just very hard to put into words and explain it much more beyond saying, like, it's a really cool video, it's very cool to watch in the element, but explaining it back, it kind of sounds silly when you break it down. But watching it, like, it's very cool. He is definitely leaning into this edgy character well, like, which makes sense. That's what Darby Allin has been. So he does it very well. I really appreciate Darby as a character and as a talent. So I think these videos are sweet because he's consistently recognized. And he is very much one of the most important characters in AEW, and you can't deny that.
Absolutely.
Because who else gets videos like this so consistently? No one, really.
Yeah.
So he really does a good job with them, too, so there's really nothing to complain about here. After that, we get Powerhouse Hobbs taking on Lee Johnson. We get Will Hobbs getting a name. Before we even talk about the match, AJ, let's talk about his name change.
Powerhouse.
We have to talk about the match a little bit, I guess, to mention that Taz, on commentary for this match, mentions that they came up with the name together. It was a team effort, and so it still is kind of goofy. But I like the idea that they mentioned why his name changed. It didn't just change, and there was no explanation. It was like, oh, he's joining our group, so now we had to give him a name.
I don't like it because I like calling him Willpower, because I thought that was dope. But now I can't do that. Now it's Powerhouse Power.
Yeah,
Anyways, Powerhouse, it's fine. Like, it is a little goofy. I would have preferred if they just kept him Will Hobbs. I'm not gonna bitch about it though. It's not like it's gonna hurt him or anything.
Nah, and going into the match, I thought they did a good job with commentary, or maybe not even commentary. I think it was his little lower third that pops up on the screen. It said that he's 6-6, but went 5-1 over his last 6 matches. So I really appreciate stuff like that. I wish commentary would lean into that a little bit more so than just talking up the story. And obviously you want the story as well, but just lean into the sporting aspect slightly, so that way it's when you bring it up later on, it has already been built in. They do it such a good job with it in other things within AEW. They could work on it with their win-loss records as well. But I liked how it was presented in the lower third, at least. So if someone takes the time to look at it like I did, you see, wow, he's won 5 of his last 6, now 6 of his last 7 with the win over Lee Johnson. This was a short match, really nothing to take away much from the match outside of their records, because Lee Johnson is like 0-17. So shout out to that guy. He's going to be looking forward to next year and getting a reset, that's for sure.
Yeah, Lee Johnson has potential, by the way. Like, I don't expect him to be a champion or anything, but like he has potential to be a guy in AEW.
They showed that a little bit here. I think that he could be someone that they focus on a little bit going into next year, sort of the same way as Hobbs, because he started off the match a little bit hot, and obviously not on an offensive role, but Hobbs just couldn't get his hands on him type of situation. And it was a good match, man. So I liked it.
Yeah, I did too. Right there with you. I thought this was pretty well done. I did forget to time this match, and I was like, "Fuck!" In the middle of the match, I was like, "Damn it!" But aside from that, I liked it. I thought Will Hobbs looked strong, which was the point of this.
Great, man. That's the thing. Like,
Taz hyped him up on commentary and after the match.
And like after the match, he did a decent job. I wish that it wasn't just such an awkward situation of him being like, Hobbs, you can just head out. I've got some stuff to handle. Like that, it didn't make Hobbs look bad at all. But then the following segment was just so goofy that, I mean, it probably is better that Hobbs got out of there, because I didn't love the next segment with Taz and Cody and everything that came with it.
I liked it.
Well, yeah, let's go ahead and talk about it. Taz,
we'll get into it.
He tells Hobbs to head to the back. And celebrate with Brian Cage and Ricky Starks. Taz goes on to mention that he's sick and tired of the FTW title and Team Taz being disrespected. He's not leaving until someone from management recognizes the FTW championship. Before he can continue, his microphone gets cut, so he orders Justin Roberts to bring him with another microphone. He goes on to start yelling some more before that microphone gets cut. Cody Rhodes comes out, starts cutting a promo on Taz, saying that they're wasting time with this. They can settle it next week in the tag team match. Taz isn't happy with that. He demands respect for the FTW championship. He says that they're tired of this shit. Cody says that he will run it all up the flagpole, so a little reference to some WWE stuff there. Before Cody then brings up the fact that he has been training Taz's son, not Taz himself. Well, Taz hasn't been training him himself, so this pisses Taz off. Taz locks in the Taz mission, and then Taz's son appears and walks out with Taz. So this is an interesting segment here, because Taz's son is now involved in AEW, and to me is going to be a player, like maybe even a major player.
I would assume. I guess I'm not sure why you didn't like this, so I do want to hear that. But I thought this was cool. I thought it made Taz look like he's, like his gimmick, what it is. Like he's rebelling against AEW, like he's saying we're getting screwed over. He's not being like the voice of the voiceless, but he is like going off on management all the time. And so for this to transpire, it makes sense to me. And for him to get in, to have like more heat going into the match, the tag team match with Cody and not Hobbs, Cody and Darby. And I really think introducing his son as a character is interesting. Don't know how it's going to go, because obviously he's new to the business, but I mean, so is Austin Gunn, and that's going all right.
Yeah, and well, these younger guys who have that built-in reputation will benefit from that. I think that we saw that last week in the ratings with the younger guys. They don't even have the built-in reputation, but with what's the name of those, Top Flight, when they got their debut, they did a solid rating because they're young kids that people are interested in. So I think that including Taz's son is a smart thing. I think that they may be, like, it just makes a lot of sense to me. My biggest takeaway in terms of why I didn't love this segment was the work shoot aspect of it early on in the segment, where Taz is like, I'm not going anywhere. They cut the mic. He's like, I know what's going on. I'll grab the headset. And it's like, man, this part is kind of clunky to me. But when we got into the actual promoing back and forth, locking in the Taz mission was a little clunky as well, but I'm not mad about it. Taz is a little bit older, so I get that.
Yeah.
But overall, when Taz's son appeared and he walked out with Taz, I was like, oh, this is cool. He's really going to be involved. Hopefully they've spent time training him, and he's going to be worth being put in this position. But I'm super excited for it. He looked like a cool dude, so I'm with it.
Yeah, man, me too. I thought the work shoot stuff, I thought it was a little bit clunky, but again, I thought it made sense, like, given what he's been doing this whole time.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing, is if it makes sense, that's where you can't really get too mad about it. So I think it was a solid segment. I'm curious to see where they go with it, especially because Cody has a lot, just kind of always has a lot going on, so it makes sense. He's got this going on with Taz, and then on the other side, the Shaq situation, so we will wait and see what happens there. We'll go backstage with Alex Marvez. He's talking to Eddie Kingston about tonight's main event. Eddie says that he's not mad at Pentagon Jr., he's just disappointed. He knew that Phoenix is a showboat that likes to flip around, but then he goes on to mention how Pac has been gone for 8 months and things have changed. Before he can continue cutting much more of a promo, Moxley appears, and Kingston just goes on to say that it wasn't him, he's got his own stuff to handle, and that Moxley knows who it was, and he has his own stuff to handle. So I thought that was interesting. Like, it makes sense.
Dude, I thought it was Kenta Kingston, so hard.
So, me too, man.
I was like, oh my god, it's Kenta, that's awesome. But it wasn't Kenta. Not yet. It could be Kenta. Potentially Kenta.
Soon.
Potentially Ed Kingston was talking about Kenta, but
I think
he was
you
not
know what
at
I
this
mean.
moment.
I am thinking that Kingston, who knows? And I think that, especially the way he was like champ and stuff like that, we will still have to wait and see. But I think it could have been Kenta. So we'll wait and see. And who knows? Maybe it won't turn into much. But I think next week would be the week that anything would happen if it were to happen. So.
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure, without a doubt. Next week is going to be a crazy. I'll predict this right now. I fully expect them to get 1 million.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I don't know that the rest of the card is really round out enough, but that main event is
It's
huge.
not, but exactly. Like,
that
it's
main
such
event
a
is huge. So
it's
and
such
that's the thing.
It's such a match.
That's the thing where if you're gonna do something big, it's going to be after that match. That's when you're gonna have the most free viewers on your television show. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't be surprised to see something crazy happen at the end of next week's show. Not totally sure what it would be, but I don't know. I'm just going out on a limb there that something crazy will happen after that title match, because they know that that's going to be the most eyes on their company. And so I think if they wanted to do a big shocking thing, that might be the time to do it.
Yeah.
Continuing on with the show, we had Top Flight take on TH2. This was a solid little match that you would get. This is what you would expect from these two teams, though. A lot of flips and high flying, but they did a good job with it, and the match was solid. So what do you think, AJ?
Got a great match. Nothing to complain about. It made Top Flight look good. TH2 coming out on top is a really good thing in my mind. I think if you start having TH2 climb the ladder to get into contention for the tag team titles, that'd be a good move. Make them look strong. Make them look like a strong heel team that would be good against the Young Bucks. More importantly, and I really like TH2. So like it doesn't seem like a significant win, because obviously this is a tag team that's only wrestled on Dark and once on Dynamite. But they had a big match against the Young Bucks on Dynamite. They attacked them on Dynamite. They obviously did some stuff on Dark, but then they had this blow-off on Dynamite. And so it feels like TH2 is being put more in the spotlight, is all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I agree that this is looking like a situation where they're building up TH2 to get at least a potential title match. Obviously attacking Top Flight, a team that the Young Bucks have taken a liking to thus far, so that pushes them to then come out and make the save and build up that feud a little bit more. So even though they might not be worthy based upon, like, maybe they're not worthy based upon win-loss record, they're going to do enough to build up the match anyway. They're going to make the match happen for some reason or another. So,
yeah.
I like it. I think that they did a solid job here, and I'm looking forward to what they do next. After this, we have Vicky Guerrero. She says that we're going to learn a lesson about nepotism and how it sounds a lot like Brandy Rhodes. And Jade Cargill and Nyla don't need to be influenced by Vicky to destroy Brandy. So Vicky cuts a decent little promo just talking about Brandy's situation with influencing a couple of different women on the women's roster. What do you think of this promo? Did it do much for you, AJ?
Not really. I want to be interested in the Jade Cargill thing, but I'm really not because of how awkward she was on the mic when she first debuted. You know, it's like that Scorpio Sky situation where you really wanted to like him and root for him whenever he was having that big match, and then he blew the finish, and it was just like, damn, it's hard. But the tag team match, I should say. But anyways, it's interesting still though, and I'm interested to see if we're gonna see Shaq on the December 2nd show, since it is going to be such a big show. And like you said, you're going to have a lot of eyes on people. I do expect to at least see Jade Cargill, which I'm not sure if I'm excited about that. But anyways, I thought it was a fine promo, but no, it didn't do too much for me.
Yeah, it really wasn't anything too exciting. It's a Vicky Guerrero promo, you know what I mean? So, I mean, and that's not even to say that Vicky promos are bad. I just think that the overall arching aspect of everything just doesn't do a whole lot for me. So I think that the Jade Cargill stuff could be interesting, and it kind of really was the first week. But when it's not just Jade and Brandy able to keep it going, it feels like there's too much involved for me to even understand what's going on.
Yeah.
So after this, we get FTR. They say it doesn't matter how many wrestling reviewers say that they had the best tag team match. That was the worst night in their life, and it's their destiny to be World Tag Team Championships, or the World Tag Team Champions. I'm sorry. They say that the Bucks need to fear the revelation. So just building up another potential rematch with the Young Bucks down the line.
Yeah. Solid here. Again, don't have too much to say about it. They talked more than what I put in the notes, but that was the sum of it, is what I should say. Because it really is exactly what you said, just building up for a rematch, which totally I'm all for. Like I said, I expect TH2 to kind of get in a match with the Bucks, but I expect that to be kind of a filler between the pay-per-view where it's probably going to be a rematch with FTR.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm expecting, them to go back to that matchup, because it is such a solid matchup, but obviously not running it into the ground on television, waiting for another pay-per-view event to do it makes the most sense to me. So, yeah, that's what I expect. We get Hager and Jericho picking up the win over SCU in about 11 minutes. Solid little match. Post-match, Inner Circle beats down SCU with Scorpio Sky making the save. So, what do you think?
Pretty good. I didn't love this one. I don't love Jake Hager, man. I think that's the problem. Like, he's not terrible, but he's not anything amazing either.
It just feels a lot more like WWE style when you're watching a Jake Hager match to me.
Yep.
So, and
yeah,
again,
really
that's
does.
not really a bad thing. It's just kind of like everything feels a little bit more slowed down, a little bit. And honestly, it works for him because we don't get that all the time in AEW. So it's not the worst thing in the world, but it is kind of apparent when you watch his matchups that it's different. It's just a different style.
When you compare him to other big guys though, like Brian Cage or Will Hobbs or Lance Archer or Brody Lee, it's like it shows like, yeah, you're a big guy, but like compared to these other big guys, and they have a lot of big guys, he's a lot less agile. He can't do a whole lot like they can. He really, like, I get that he's training for MMA, but I feel like he could like kind of try to keep up with these other big guys that they have on the roster. 'Cause even Wardlow is, I think, wrestles circles around him.
He just feels like a non-factor almost a lot of times to me. Because he's there, but he almost doesn't even do much. He's the big guy, but I don't really even see him defending the group very often. He's just the big guy of the group who takes on the big guy of someone else's group. He's never really destroying anyone for Jericho or anything. So I don't mind Hager for his position, but what his position is just like nothing to me. That's why when he was in the title role, it was very difficult for me. But right
Yeah.
now, what he's doing with Jericho, it kind of works for me. Them in their own little tag team role because it gives them something to do and feel important at points in time. So.
That's totally fair, and I'm not saying like they did anything wrong with this match. I don't think that's the case. It's just Hager doesn't do it for me, and so that was dragging it down for me. Scorpio Sky looks good coming out with the save. MJF cheated to get them the victory with the Dynamite diamond ring, and we'll get into that later on in their promo. But it's interesting. It was, you know what was cool? It was cool to see Chris Daniels and Chris Jericho wrestle. They were talking a lot about it. They were hyping it up. And before they even hyped it up, though, that was a match in AEW I really wanted to see, and I still want to see it. I'm kind of bummed out that it's going to be Kazarian and Jericho and not Daniels and Jericho, because like these are two dudes who basically are around the same age, have wrestled for around the same amount of time, and this is the first time they ever touched, and
they're both like
would be a really
extremely
cool
talented.
match.
It's not even a situation of like, because they are very old, where one of them could be way worse than the other. I think they would have a phenomenal match at this point in time. So I could also see them just kind of trying to save it. This could be building to that, where they're building up to making that match a little bit more special than just the pre-built hype of it all, which I can't complain about. They continue to build the hype between Kip Sabian, Miro, Orange Cassidy, and the Best Friends. When Kip Sabian and Miro did a video game extravaganza, Orange Cassidy comes in before they can really even get to having too much fun and unplugs the TV, and this obviously leads to a brawl with the Best Friends. So the Best Friends and Orange Cassidy kind of do a solid job in these roles of like throwaway feuds, but I wonder what it will do for Kip and Miro coming out of this feud, because it hasn't really done much for Santana and Ortiz. It did add some credibility to them, but they were able to come out of that with like a crazy match. If this doesn't end in a crazy match with some crazy thing happening, then it's just going to probably end with the Best Friends beating Kip Sabian and Miro in a clean matchup, which is, I'm cool with that, but I don't know what it does for those guys.
I disagree. I think it might end with Miro and Kip Sabian beating the Best Friends in a clean matchup, because you have Miro, who's more fresh and new to the company. Best Friends are established. It's not like they're going to look bad if they lose this feud. And so I feel like it's entirely possible for the opposite to happen. But to your point, I do think they will have some kind of crazy match.
Yeah, it's going to build up to a specialty match. At this point, it should, or like maybe not even an actual specialty match, but they'll call it like some video game extravaganza or something, or maybe they'll just do like a Mortal Kombat match. AJ, who knows?
That'd be great. I would love like what they did at GCW.
I have no idea what you're talking about, but yes,
I'm pretty sure they put on Mortal Kombat music and started making sound effects.
Sure, dude. If that's what you want, let's get it. Let's get it going with Kip Sabian, Miro, and the Best Friends. But I think it's a solid little filler feud, exactly what we need. So I can't complain about it at all. And I like that they're consistent with it. That's the biggest takeaway I have from feuds like this. Is it's not just like 1 week we get it, and then 4 weeks away we get some more of it, and then we get the flow away at like a pre-show pay-per-view that no one pays any attention to. So it actually gets build to it and consistency, which you got to appreciate. We then go out to the ring for the contract signing. Tony Schiavone's out there. Kenny Omega begins to come out, but Jon Moxley attacks him in the tunnel. This was a really cool visual because we saw the outline of Omega and then him getting attacked by Moxley. And then Mox just continues to beat the shit out of him for a minute, cuts a promo, signs the contract, and leaves. This was a solid segment where I think Mox's promo was really great. They did a really solid job here just building up a match that I'm obviously excited for, and they didn't have to do too much for it either. These guys didn't keep beating the shit out of each other. I'm almost convinced that it was Moxley at this point, because why else would Kenny have just like gotten beaten up like that and still be coherent but not really fight back, if that makes sense? Because he was just kind of chilling there watching at a point Moxley cut the promo, or unless I'm mistaken.
I don't know. He hit him with the paradigm shift on the title. Maybe he was like,
Bro, I swear he was like getting up at a point in the middle of the promo where like he was just listening at a point. But I don't know. I might be
your
tripping.
point. This was a great segment. This was really well done, simple, like KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Like, this is the epitome of that. Like, Moxley's pissed off, thinks Omega laid him out, goes to beat the shit out of Omega, does it, cuts a sick promo on him, signs the contract, is out of there. Like, that's everything you need. And I like the promo too. I like the contents of it. Like he was saying, like if you want to beat him, you need to be the Kenny Omega everybody says you are. Like, you need to bring that guy out like the best bout machine, because like otherwise you're not going to win this match. I thought that was really well done. And I think this hyped up the match perfectly. It's really all you need to hype it up. And like we also have intrigue going on because Moxley still was laid out, and we don't know that it was Kenny, and presumably it probably wasn't. I feel like, because Kenny wasn't like talking or doing anything like he thought Moxley would be going at him. So I feel like he was so under the assumption that he had nothing to do with it, that like he wasn't even prepared for something like that.
That's fair. That's also a fair assessment. And you could be right, and that makes a little bit more sense to me in terms of why he was just so nonchalant and chilling at that point. But I don't know, wouldn't Omega at a point just be wondering like why the fuck the guy he's supposed to face got laid out a week ago? But I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's what I like about this storyline. Is I guess my biggest takeaway of all of this is that we are able to speculate and not really narrow it down to what it has to be for it to make sense. Like, it could go a couple different ways for it to make sense, and that's cool by me. After this, we get MJF cutting a promo. He says, "What kind of man sucker punches another man in the face? Frankie Kazarian is that man." Jericho goes on to say some more stuff about Kaz, and then announces that they will have a match one-on-one next week. I was kind of surprised, like you were, in how they announced this and the fact that this was the matchup they went to, because the Jericho-Daniels match feels perfect for that next week's slot. But instead... And the way, or just MJF versus Kaz next week, and then Jericho versus Daniels another week also could have been what I was expecting. This was just weird. But I'm not against it. It's going to still be a really good match, and it does make sense. So I don't want to say weird as in it's a bad way. But what I was expecting was MJF versus Kaz, Jericho versus Daniels. Instead, this is what we get, which is still going to be good.
Yeah, I don't have really anything to add. That's about my thoughts. I totally expected Daniels and Jericho, but like you said, maybe we'll get that down the line.
Yes, and so I think that it's probably going to be something that they build to down the line. But next week would have been a solid place for it. Nonetheless,
it would have.
We get a hype video for Anna Jay versus Hikaru Shida, which is cool. You need to do stuff like this, make title matches feel important, especially when they're on Dynamite, especially when it's just Anna Jay. Not to say anything is wrong with Anna Jay, but she's still needing to be elevated herself.
Yeah.
This was a nice little short match. Short for a title match, I should say, because the women have gotten a decent amount of time on TV, and this was a decent amount of time for Anna Jay, but it still was only about 8 minutes. So what do you think? Hikaru picking up the win, retaining the title. I ate my words on this one because it wasn't an Anna Jay win at all.
I was very happy with the match. I thought Anna Jay looked a lot better than the first time she faced Hikaru. Like, she's come a long way in AEW since she first debuted. So credit to her. She's been working her ass off, apparently. This wasn't a long match, like you said. It wasn't there were non-title matches that were longer on this show. Almost every other match on this show was longer, I think, except for Will Hobbs. But it was kind of smart to do that, because while I give that credit to Anna Jay, she still is new. You don't want to necessarily go for 15 minutes and then it turns out to be a shitty match. And I think this made Anna Jay look pretty good. It didn't make her look weak, even though the match wasn't particularly long. She comes out of it getting that rub and being more elevated than she was prior. Overall, good match. Both girls killed it. I like the Tay Conti stuff where she was hesitant to give her a chair. I like the kendo stick shot. Thought the match was well booked, well put together, I mean. No complaints here.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. No complaints. I know that last week I was pushing the idea that maybe Anna Jay could come out with a victory just to give the Dark Order a title. Obviously not. Instead, Hikaru Shida picks up the win, and then we have Abaddon come out post-match, which I thought was really cool, because that says that Abaddon's injury obviously isn't as bad as people had speculated, which is just a great situation in and of itself. And then Abaddon has the built-in feud a little bit with the Karushida, that if they do build a hype video off it, they can remind people of what their backstory is a little bit. And I think that's really great.
Yeah, great opponent for Hikaru Shida. I love Abaddon. I love her character. I haven't seen a whole lot of her matches, but what I have seen, I've liked. Mm-hmm. So it was cool that Hikaru Shida was selling it too, that she was scared of Abaddon when she came out, which makes sense because like even though she could probably like beat her up, like she was hurt and also was scary. And so Abaddon grabs the title and licks it, like claiming it. Mm-hmm. And I think Abaddon's a great character, man. She's really unique.
That is different, and it helps, especially because Hikaru plays off of it so well. Also, like the way that she reacts to some of the stuff Abaddon has done in the past and whatnot, it really helps add to Abaddon's character. So
I like it that like especially in modern, because like in the 90s this wasn't the case, but like in more recent times of women's wrestling, everybody's like trying to look real pretty or really cool, and Abaddon is going for scary, and right. I like that. I like that aesthetic that she, like in the 90s you would see that all the time, especially in like Joshi, where it was just like scary ass girls gonna try to kill you, and it was like fuck yeah, like that's what I want. I want like I wish, like for instance, like Nyla Rose, I wish she would like just like tried to look and act more like a fucking beast, like a monster who was just a scary motherfucker. Right. Like that would sell me on her way more than like her like dressing up, putting on makeup and all that. Like I don't want to see you putting on makeup. I want to see you being a fucking monster. But in this case, the Abaddon
puts on makeup to be a monster. Yeah, that's funny how that works. I think Abaddon is really solid, though, and I'm curious to see where they're going with this. And it's kind of cool that it'll probably end at the pay-per-view, I would imagine, not at the next show. So, or maybe not at the pay-per-view, because that might be a ways off. But it's obviously not something they're building to next week. They're building it to the next big show. We then got a Matt Hardy promo. I don't really have a whole lot to take away from this. Do you?
He's a heel now.
Bro, I just don't have a whole lot of energy for Matt Hardy when it's not what it used to be, and it's not what I want it to be. And I'm like, that's me as a fan. That's nothing against him at all. Like, I totally get that's just my bias and my opinion. But at the same time, that's my bias and my opinion, man. I just don't have it for him anymore. And it's like...
I think I do. I don't know where this is going. I am interested in this heel Big Money Matt, if it is Big Money Matt. I don't know.
That's where I don't get too interested, because I don't think it's going... I don't buy into it too much. And then who's to say in 2 weeks he doesn't just come out with Private Party again and it's all like... back to whatever.
I don't know. I think AEW is more consistent than that. I feel like he's going to have
his story in AEW
that's
has
not
true. Been. The one guy who has been the most totally not consistent is Matt. And I'm not saying, again, it's not bad.
No, you're right.
And if he sticks with this, I'll probably end up loving the gimmick the more it goes on. But I'm not convinced that in 2 weeks he's not just going to be like, oh, here's my boy's Private Party and let's go beat up Sammy Guevara. Like I
feel like this is going to lead to him like treating, like condescending to Private Party a lot more and treating them like underlings and putting them in a position where they're not comfortable being in. And I'm kind of excited for that, because now that you mentioned Private Party, that's where my head goes. So I feel like he is going to come out with Private Party, but it's going to be a slow burn into him like changing his character.
Yeah, that's fair. So I just... Yeah, I'm glad that he's getting a character change and is actually shifting into it. I would just want to see it consistently happen now, because it's just been a weird ride for Matt.
It's a very hard left turn. You're right to that extent.
Everything that I've thought was going to be great with Matt, it just hasn't lived up to my own personal expectations. And again, I put that on myself as a fan, but just none of it has lived up to what I wanted. So
no, you're perfect. I mean, really, it hasn't, because and not a lot of it's not his fault, but a lot of it's just circumstance, and that sucks. But that's it doesn't change the perception.
So hopefully they can build this off of that. So I shouldn't downplay this so much and give it a little bit more credence. Matt, you got me. You pulled me back in for one more run, brother. Let's get it. Let's talk about what they have on the docket for next week. They have the Dynamite Diamond Battle Royal. Jericho taking on Kazarian, Darby and Cody taking on Hobbs and Starks, Britt Baker taking on Layla Hirsch, and Kenny Omega taking on Jon Moxley. Solid card. Really don't think Mox and Omega are going to disappoint at all. I'm excited. I hope that by the time entrances and everything has happened, we almost have like 30 minutes for the match, and because the match then could go 15 minutes and you could do something crazy for 15 minutes. Or I just hope they're not in a position that they've been in so many times where they've been short on time at the end of the show and you could feel it. Like, guys, please, if there's ever a week to not let that happen, let it be next week, because what a card. What a main event, I guess I should say.
Yeah, and I feel like the card is almost designed around, like, this is the match. Like, fuck all the other matches. Not fuck all the other matches, but fuck all the other matches for this instance of saying, this is the match we're paying attention to. This is the one that matters. This is the big moment, so let's not fuck it up.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Jared, because you're right, it's definitely not these matches are all kind of important in a way. Like, we're finally getting to see Britt Baker a little bit more. The Dynamite Diamond Battle Royal, I guess, is important. I wish that
cool.
wasn't. I mean, it is cool, but at the same time, I don't know. I mean, it is cool. It's cool, and it could be like a passing of a heel situation, like a torch for the heels. Like, it works. It is what it is. But again, there's no other major match on this card, so you're right. They are telling us very specifically, this is the one you need to tune in for. And people will. Like, people will absolutely tune in for it. We've been waiting a year for Omega to get that opportunity to win that belt. Like, there is so much they could do. If you do make a new champion, if you have something exciting planned, like, there's a lot that could happen. A lot that could happen. So, I'm excited, and I think that next week is kind of like almost the beginning of maybe something bigger. Who knows? But I'm just stoked for that main event match. So
absolutely, that's gonna blow all expectations away.
Yep, and then we get Ricky Starks cutting a promo. He says that Cody Rhodes crossed the line. They love it at AEW, but they have a problem with Cody. They claim that Cody begged Tony Khan to cut his mic, and then went on to make it personal. So next week, him and Hobbs are coming to bust heads. So solid promo from Starks. I'm excited to see the combination of Hobbs and Starks now. And also, I think that does a lot for Cage to sort of take him away to be a solo guy. Obviously not a solo guy, but the guy of the three who's going to be on
the singles guy,
the singles guy. Which I'm glad they're establishing that now. Like,
I am too.
Hobbs easily could have taken that focus. At least could have felt like he should have taken that focus if they didn't establish it early.
Yep. And the other benefit here is that if you do have Starks and Hobbs in tag team, Starks, because, like, I don't know if Hobbs can talk. Maybe he can, maybe he can't. But Starks can talk, and that's a good reason to have him with Starks.
Yes, 100%. So I think that they're a solid tag team and a solid unit there with Team Taz. So I'm glad with what they've got going on here. We have Eddie Kingston come out to join commentary for the Butcher and the Blade taking on Pac and Phoenix. And the Butcher and the Blade picked up a shocking victory to me, at least.
Yeah.
This is super significant for the Butcher and the Blade. What a
I wrote it
win
differently in
over
the
Pac,
notes, so at first I had to change it. But yeah, man, I can't believe they won. Because I was thinking, like, man, you can't have them look like. Hey. But after it happened, I was like, this makes sense. Because if the Butcher and the Blade lose, like, where does Eddie Kingston and his family go from there? And I was thinking about it. I was like, I guess they really wouldn't have anything to do. They have no credence to have another match. They have no reason for Pac versus Eddie. Like, it would just make Butcher and the Blade look weak. But instead, you have Butcher and the Blade, who have been looking consistently strong, especially the Blade. And getting
Blade,
a win.
That's funny you say that. I would say the Butcher is the one who looks consistently strong. So that's good for them as a unit. Like,
yeah. Definitely. I was just saying because, like, I know he got the color in the bunkhouse match, and then he got the match with Pac. So I was thinking, like,
I don't disagree with you. I just think that it's solid for them.
No, I hear
that,
you. Yeah,
like,
Butcher is definitely looking strong too. So you're right. And in the same vein, fucking Eddie Kingston screwing over Phoenix to get this win makes this really cool because it makes it so that, like, you have this reason to have him face Phoenix or Pac or whatever, because he's going to face Pac, but, like, in the meantime, he could face Phoenix, and you can build this up more. You can run this for a while and really have them have a good blowout, and a good 3 versus 3. This is almost
like a upgraded mini feud to the best friends ones that we've been getting, because these guys all have, like, established upper mid-card history already, Eddie and Pac at least, and then 2 really great tag teams around them. Whereas the best friends, Orange is an upper mid-card kind of guy, but it's just a different feel. So this match, like, this is a really cool, or not even match, this feud is a really cool feud that they have building, and that can, like, as we were talking about it, I'm like, wow, they can almost build like a big show around just this feud, because the tag match you could open with and close with Pac versus Kingston and basically throw anything else on the rest of the show, and it's a serviceable Dynamite. Like, so a really cool feud that they have here, and I'm glad with how they've built it up. And
and a shout out to Butcher and the Blade, because when the Butcher and the Blade came in, it was rough. Like, it wasn't a good debut. I wasn't sure where they were going to end up in the whole roster of AEW, or if they were going to make it as like a real like unit.
How it's come around in just a year, man. Like, I want to say they maybe debuted around this time last year, where I think around there, where it felt kind of like, I don't know what's really going to go on with these guys. And in the year's time, they've gotten the bunny back, and it felt like everything they did to separate them and everything has worked out and made them all better. Like, they are all better off for everything that has happened in the last year. And I think that's really cool, because they are a solid unit now that I treat a lot more serious, especially after this victory, but just in general. So I think that this was a solid. And then obviously at the end of the show, we have Lance Archer return and clear house. He takes basically everyone out, sort of making the save for Pac's team. So that was kind of interesting, but I think it's more or less him explaining that he just doesn't fucking like any of these guys.
Yeah, and especially Eddie Kingston,
right?
Which is cool. I'm glad that Lance Archer has something to do, because again, you can drag this feud out. Like, you don't have to hotshot Pac and Eddie Kingston. You don't have to hotshot the 3-on-3. You can have some, breakdowns, filler stuff in the meantime. And also, I don't want to say this, but I have to say it. A win over Lance Archer would look great for Eddie Kingston right now.
Oh yeah, especially just like if they're building up to a match with Pac too. Like, a win over Archer would be really good for Kingston. I don't think that Kingston is like floundering or anything, but a win, like, Archer's probably one of the more legitimate guys they have on the roster that Kingston could go over right now and sort of just add a little bit more to his repertoire. So I think that you're right. And I think that this situation, and it's like it makes sense. It's like he has a built-in history with Archer. Everything for Archer to come and attack him, it isn't like some crazy out of nowhere situation. It's like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense, and then they'll have a match. That makes sense, and it will just continue on from there. And so for them to build it this way, I'm glad. And it's not like Archer just forgot about what happened with Kingston and his crew either. He's addressing it right now, and then he'll go on to what happens next, which is just, it's almost foreign in our world of professional wrestling, but in the last year AEW has made it very not foreign. So
yeah, absolutely.
And that's what was solid about tonight's Dynamite, is it's just consistency. When you get consistently built stories, like, every show isn't going to be a home run, and it's almost like you would probably, at least if it's me, I'm not saying this is what Tony Khan did, but this is what I would do, is I would sell this show a little short. I wouldn't have too much exciting wrestling or exciting storyline or exciting much. Like, just get by, and then next week's show is going to be the big one, because everyone is tuning into that one. You said it yourself at the beginning of the show. That's where they're going to get $1 million if they're going to get it. And it's almost fucked up, because we had talked about it at the beginning of before the pandemic, where we were like, they're on a path to $1 million because they had a lot of cool stuff built up. They're just coming out and getting back to where they were pre-pandemic. But this is the match that I do agree with you that pulls in at least 1 million people to see it. And it probably way, way, way more. Like, just for that match. I'm not talking about the overall rating on the show, but in terms of how it balances out the show, this one's going to have like 1.2, 1.4, because it's just an important match, the biggest match in AEW's history for sure. Mox and Kenny, not only are they facing off in an AEW ring, this is a guy who was a champion of WWE at one point and a guy who was a champion of New Japan. Like, this is like a dream match coming together in some world that wasn't expected, and it's being given away on free TV. People were wondering why. I don't think it's going to be because something fishy is going to happen. I think it's because they want to give away the biggest match that they possibly can to the most people that they can, and this is it.
Yep. Because I would imagine right now the pay-per-view, as big of a deal as the pay-per-view is, during COVID, it becomes less significant, and you're probably going to get way more eyes if you put it on TV, and that's what they're doing. And it gives you this other question of, one, who's the fuck is going to win? Number two, who's going to be fighting at the pay-per-view? Because that's not far off either. And it just puts all these questions in your mind, like, is Kenta going to come? Is Moxley going to lose? And then that enters into a feud with Kenta in AEW and New Japan. Is Kenny Omega gonna lose, and same thing or whatever, like, or who's next? There's so much going on with this match.
There are plenty of people who are viable contenders, so it's not to say that they haven't created them, but who is next if Kenny loses, you know? There's so much about next week's show and next week's match that is so cool and built up so well without even having to do too much to build it up, honestly. That just makes it an exciting show, an exciting match that I'm really looking forward to. And it's like, it makes sense when you're a company who, like AEW, after a year, you want to start building onto that number of fans. You know, we talk about how every week we're kind of cool with the number of people tuned in. I'm sure that at a point they want to consistently at least be pulling 9. Not 750 to 9 every week. They want to consistently get 900,000. So how do you do it? You bring in new fans, and this is the match that's going to do it. It's the match that's going to pull people in, especially if they continue to promote it throughout the week and give like interview.
They should be doing a road to for this, like, absolutely.
So I'm excited, and I think they've done a great job at building it up, just slowly but surely throughout the regular shows. So I mean, it's hard to talk about anything concerning next week without just talking about how excited you are, because it's the biggest match in AEW's history. It's very strange to me, almost like it's just kind of starting to dawn on me that it's only a week away, not on pay-per-view, and that's why it's dawning on me, because usually the big matches for AEW are on a Saturday, so I'm like, oh sweet, I don't have to work. Well, I already don't work next Wednesday, so it's just like a regular situation, but I'm excited for that match. I'm excited for what they have set up. And yeah, dude, AEW.
Yeah, as I'm thinking about it, you're dead on though. This is the biggest match AEW's had. I can't think of a bigger one. Like, I was thinking like Moxley and Omega, but that wasn't even a sanctioned match. Or Jericho and Moxley, but that's kind of a WWE match, so it's not like
Jericho Omega, which had already happened in New Japan. So it's like, yeah, this is the biggest AEW match, and like I said, man, it's not just an AEW match. This is a straight up certified dream match. Like, you can't really put it any other way. People definitely had this on their dream cards in 2018, 2017, when those guys were wrecking it in their respective companies. So I'm hyped up for next week. I'm very excited. We have covered everything there is to cover for this week's Dynamite. So AJ, let them know where they can find you.
You can follow me on Instagram at AJ and you can follow me on Twitter at BigMatchAJ.
And as always, you can find the podcast on Twitter at All Elite Podcast. We're on Facebook at Facebook.com/All Elite Pod. We are on Instagram at All Elite Pod. We are also on YouTube at YouTube.com/All Elite Podcast. You can find me on Twitter at Upstate Andrew and on Instagram at Andrew Kassir. Thank you guys for always supporting, checking us out, listening, chatting with us. We will be back next week to talk about the wonderful Kenny Omega versus Jon Moxley match.
Thursday, right?
Yeah, next Thursday we will be back to discuss the ratings and the match and any other potential news from AEW. Very excited for that. Until next week, thank you guys for tuning in. See ya.
Bye.
Bye. We did it.
We did it.